thank everyone for taking time to learn. I also want to commend you because it is only through taking this time for opportunities like this that we broaden our perspective. And it's a perfect speaker that we have today because, as you know, we all work together and we all share different strengths, but Miss Brenda Engelhardt has been a teacher and within the education field for over 20 years and is somebody who deeply cares about Eleuthera. So we are going to listen with open minds, open hearts. There's going to be some time at the end. Um, and, usually we start with a prayer. So I want to thank God that we are all here. We're all able to connect and we're all able to do our best to help the children and the people in our lives who might have learning differences. And I didn't introduce myself. My name is Lang Hudapol. I'm the founder and director of EEO, and EEO is a nonprofit. Every service that we do does not earn any money. We don't charge parents, but we are hoping to gain a community support for parents who want to learn more. So hopefully this is the start of a connection that we can have some continuity and keep up and we can stay in touch with you all. So we have your emails and we can reach back out, but um, you can also reach out to us and we're wanting to do the best we can to make every child shine. All right. So I'll let Brenda get started.
Hi,
And Gabby,
everybody.
do you want to make it so that the sidebar is off? So that it's presentation mode maybe? Or no? Was that
Gabby, do
being,
you do that on your end?
yeah. And
Yeah.
Brenda, why don't you're gonna just say next to her when
Yeah.
she okay,
Well,
perfect.
I'll just go ahead real quickly and I would copy everything that Lang said. I don't know exactly who's here, but you're probably a parent or a teacher. And the fact that you've worked all day and now you're sitting here, let me tell you, that's something that's showing up. My intention is to go over about 30 minutes of material specifically talking about sensory communication and learning differences as they relate to autism. So it's hopefully strategy based that you can take something away. Um, okay, having said that, next. Who am I and why am I up here? So I am a retired school teacher, taught in the middle school in Geneva, Illinois. I am in Illinois right now, and it is 12 degrees. I'm just going to put that right there. So I specialized with middle school students, but reading starts, as we know, so much younger. So I have worked with younger students, and I've done a lot of co-writing of curriculum with our education teachers. In the States, they're going towards more of a co-teacher model, at least in our state. And you had to be working together to get those IEP plans prepared and then what they could learn in the class. So there was a high degree of working with special education, and I had a great experience um, with my associates. I do have a reading specialist degree, and then I am mostly informed about autism and learning differences through my son. And Alex is now 27 and he lives with us. He is working full time. He is able to be as independent as he can right now. We're hoping he is able to move at some point. But um, let me just say, when you live with a child with autism, you see it from such a different perspective than the teacher does. And so I'm hoping to bring both of those insights because both of them are important. And if you're a teacher that doesn't have an autistic child, I get you. I totally, whoo, it's a lot. Last, I don't hold any medical or therapeutic degrees. What I have is my education and maternal background. So I think that how I divided this up is first we'll go into a definition, um, talk about diagnosis a little bit because I'm in States, you're in the Bahamas, it's going to be different. And then we'll go into the strategies. And anytime, if you want to ask a question, I mean, we can certainly answer them at the end, but if something's in your head and you think you won't remember it, please let me know. It's very important as we go into this. I'm not going to be describing the entirety of the spectrum. Every child learns differently, period. But especially with the neurodivergence of autism, it's going to look different. Teaching a child looks different, and them learning looks different. Early understanding is the best way to get support. And then you parents are absolutely the strongest advocates. And there is loving teachers in the classrooms. I know that. But you live with these children in and out. You know what they can do, you know what they can't do. And it's really important that your opinion is taken into account or your observations. So autism, it's an it's called ASD, autism spectrum disorder. I can't emphasize enough how it's a spectrum, so many different types of behaviors. But basically, it all comes back to that there is a neurodevelopmental or brain difference, especially in learning. And I've cut it into four categories. So communication, and you might say, for example, stuttering could be a problem. Alex had stuttering. There's also all the way to nonverbal. I have not worked with nonverbal children. My daughter does. She is a social worker and works with them. Social interaction, behavior and learning style, and then physical balance or proprioception. That's basically your how you feel yourself in the air. And we don't think about it, but it's a balance system that our body and our brain uses. And autistic kids have it's affected. So, diagnosis for all this um, is it must be done through medical professionals. There is no single test. You can't get it through your blood, can't get it through a brain scan. So it does rely on clinical observation, to be more specific, of social communication deficits and restricted repetitive behaviors, and most importantly, includes parent observations. I do know, is it the Seahorse Institute, Gabby, that's in Nassau? And so I do not know that organization, but was told via research that's the place to start, maybe. Before we get into what kids can't do, let's talk about what they can do, their strengths. They have often a strong memory. Now, my husband, my child, my 27-year-old cannot remember what he had for breakfast, but he has got the strongest verbal memory, and he can remember every line from a movie, every line from a song. He has that ability. One of the things we see with these youngsters, especially with their art, is a keen detail, attention to detail. They may refuse to do certain things, but boy, when it comes to making that Star Trek picture or Star Wars picture, they've got incredible detail. And that's something we can work with, especially getting to know their interests, which is on this list. Visual learning, so important that we understand they may need to not see something written in words, but see it in a chart. Maybe we can communicate in a different way. Maybe we communicate verbally and they don't have to take that test written. And what I love about my son and my autistic students, they're honest. They're really tough for them to lie. And so there's a very direct communication. Now that takes some getting used to as well. And sometimes with teachers, we think it's defiance. We think it's trying to be a class clown. Maybe sometimes it is, but this is some of the strengths that you can actually turn it around and look at. Hey, they're being really honest. So the strategies that we're going to look at: structure. We're going to look at sensory regulation, communication support, behavioral support, and social skills. So for structure, and this is a place that I really struggled myself, is that kids with autism need, they're very rigid thinking. It's very black and white. If their day is a confusion of activities and they don't know what's coming next, you can expect meltdowns. And so visual schedules like calendars, charts with stickers, transition plans, which I talk about, which it even could be a green card, it's time to go to work, yellow card, let's put our books away, red card, we are in our seats, books away. I mean, just something to give them some structure. Clear, visible routines, which I think is kind of repetitive. Warnings before transitions. The story that I could tell you with my probably then 6-year-old, and we were hiking, and we were in this really icy canyon. And for some reason, there were a lot of people there. And I told my son it was time to leave. And I didn't give any transition. I didn't know at that time what that was. And he had a meltdown, which then we had to hike for a mile and a half with him screaming, with people watching, and with me beseeching. I literally beseeched God at that point. And I'm not being ironic. I mean, I didn't know what to do. So, had I just known that giving a time warning or giving some kind of verbal warning, I could have avoided all that. You lives, you learns. Consistency, very important to these kids, and also timers. I believe in them. Use them all over the place, either at home or at school. Autistic people have a different regulation of sensory. Taste, feel, things can be too scritchy, too, taste can have like a strange texture to it. And I often thought this was just trying to avoid eating something I had made, when come to find out this is actually, it tastes different and feels different to them, the way their brain processes it. And I'm going to put this first for how sensory regulation can help with a strategy is keep calm. I know what it's like to have escalated kids, and you're escalated too. And we know that kids will just ping pong back with that energy. And so do what you have to do to take a few minutes or a few seconds, probably. Deep breath. You're not a bad parent. You're not a bad teacher. This is because the child is learning in ways that are uncomfortable for him, whatever that meltdown may have been about. Obviously, movement breaks. I love that EEO has a different classroom in many schools, I think, don't they? A separate classroom that, and I don't know what the structure is like, but for kids to go and get out of the classroom for a moment, go get a drink of water. Fidgets, good thing. Quiet corners, libraries. When kids are overstimulated, they literally need less noise, they need less input. So getting them to a place where they can maybe calm down for a few minutes. Weighted lap pads or weighted blankets also are good things. I'm going to stop there real quick. I'm talking fast. I'm going through this list. Is there anything that anybody wants to comment or ask before I go on? Okay.
I just, I was going to maybe mention that the weighted blankets that could, we did a workshop last year where we got tube socks and filled it with rice or sand.
Oh, cool.
Um, just that there's other ways, are there other ways if you can't buy a weighted blanket on the island that you offer? Can you explain why that pressure and that heaviness?
I can't explain what it does to the brain, but pressure, swaddling in young kids and weighted
Hmm.
blankets, it calms
That,
the neurosystem. I
yeah.
don't understand how or why, but
Yeah, I mean, I remember even kids that like to be hugged really hard, and
mhm.
they would want to, they and it yes. But is there any other besides weighted blankets, is there any other way to get that sensory input that you suggest that
That's such a good question. And it's something that I can go back and find
Yeah.
out from people more expert in the area. Sometimes I've seen kids sit under the counter in
Hmm.
between two, what do you call them? Drawers, rolling drawers, and they fit in there and they squeeze in there. And that teacher knows that they just need that time. They need to be kind of shut off from the world. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
think you can make ways in your classroom and at home that um, they can
Yeah.
find some relief.
Yeah. Carrying things, maybe even sometimes, like a heavier backpack, sometimes even
Mhm.
that grounds them. Okay, I didn't mean to dive. This is so good. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Uh, so communication, this is huge. If you have an autistic child, one of the things that hurts the most is their inability to be socially in the know. And they don't understand communication unless it's been practiced and trained. I'm not saying people aren't capable, but youngsters often do not register the same visual stuff that we register. And one of those things is nonverbal cues. And I just picked up a piece of a fact that 51% of our interaction is nonverbal, meaning the way we hold our arms, the way we're sitting in the chair, how our eyebrows are looking. And we're getting cues all the time. If you're savvy, huge social skill to have. I can tell you that at 27, my son is getting better at it, but as a child, he really struggled with appropriate what he was supposed to do with his face and what others were trying to communicate to him. And there's, I don't know, there's charts that can give you smiley faces to show emotions. And sometimes that's a way to communicate how you're feeling rather, or get them to communicate because they maybe can't express what they're feeling. And the other thought is that sometimes joking around, they're very literal thinkers and they don't understand a joke. For years, I would tell Alex, jump in the shower. And he would say, Mom, you can't jump, you'll fall. And I always thought, oh, no, he literally thought for years, jump in the shower. The kid was telling me, settle down, you shouldn't do that. So, understanding those nuances helps as a teacher. I really believe that. This works for all kids. Simple directions broken into parts. Today, our kids, and I'm speaking from Illinois in the States, boy, is their attention span lower than it used to be. And so we really have to break into parts for all kids. Sometimes teachers, we overtalk. I, I, I do it. I'm talking right now. Talk, talk, talk. And that's a stimulus, and it can be too much. And sometimes what you need to do is just have a quiet time with the student, just sit with them. It's really hard for a regular ed teacher to do that. And so, ways that you could reduce talking is write them a note, let them go to a quiet area. Um, the last thing I would say on communication is sometimes you need to wait longer because the processing, they may be taking in all kinds of sensory things that we don't even, the background noise, it's chilly because the air conditioning's on them. Let them process in their own time. And I think this is a good teaching tip anyway, is to let the students talk before we get in and tell them the answer. Behaviors. I hate the idea that it's negative, but I think we're talking about strategies for negative behaviors. So, for example, teaching a replacement behavior, where and this is just one that's happened a lot with my students and my son, is they blurt, they think, they blurt, and it's hard to get them to raise their hand. They just aren't, and it's interrupting the class. And I got to a point with older kids. Now, this would be harder with a younger kid, is have them write their point down, their thoughts down on a sticky note. They can either share it at the end of the discussion or at the end of class. That's an example of replacement behavior. There are many. As I'd said before, breaking any task into short steps because anxiety is a huge problem with autism spectrum. Overwhelm is a huge problem. So anytime you can break things into smaller, they feel more successful more immediately. And it's sometimes hard for these kids to feel success because they're always being told, stop that, don't that, get down from that. That's not right. And it's not because we're bad, but they don't follow the social norms a lot of the times. Um, it just helps with their anxiety. Using visual cues, we've talked about that, calendars, charts. And I'm a big believer in positive reinforcement and finding praise for what they actually did. Not, oh, you look so cute today. And I don't think we do that. But, oh man, Joe, that is the best spelling, the best writing I've seen you do. I like how you did this line. Really authentic praise is they know when it's authentic and they know when somebody's trying to help them find the right, put them in the right light. That makes them trust more. This is really an area for your social workers, social skill building. But a lot of times we don't have a social worker in the classroom with us. So what are we supposed to do if kids are showing behavior that aren't to the social norm. Well, sometimes autistic kids are better in small groups. They have less going on, less nonverbal to pick up on, and you have to pick the group, I think, somewhat carefully, but that can be a very important thing. Another thing is peer mentoring, that a peer that does have the right social behaviors, you team them up. And it's got to be that right kind of peer that's not going to look at their deficits and make fun of them or anything like that. But just using another peer to help them. And I'm talking about on the playground or, not academics, but social. Um, there is something called social stories. We have them in the States. They are scripted stories to help kids act out a social situation. I'm also a big believer that when something happens socially inappropriate, if it can be a lesson rather than a consequence. And that's very tough with the structure of the schools and with the responsibilities as a regular teacher. But my son finally got the help he needed when he went to a special school, and everything in that school was for training you if you went off the beam, if you said something or did something, it wasn't so much a consequence as a lesson. And I love that idea. Hopefully, that's something that can be utilized or um, found for the schools. Okay, so it's really important that we look at our autistic kids. They learn differently, but they're not diseased, they're not ill. They have a different way of thinking, and therefore they can learn. Oftentimes they have very deep special interests and really things that can help teach us, but we have to look at them as more than a set of deficits. Your son or daughter can attend school, build relationships. However, those skills may look emotionally a little bit behind peers, and it may take longer for them to get that. Like I said, my son at 27 is living in my house, and some people might think that's a travesty. That's the what we need to do right now so he can get on his feet when he's ready to go out on his own. And finally, the resources that I used for my information are here. Like I said, the Seahorse Institute and Reach Bahamas are two things I found um, from my research that are great resources for in the Bahamas. And I thank you again for letting me come in. I hope there is something in here that touched or you could take with you, and I will always remain a resource. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to Gabby, maybe copy and paste some of the resources in the chat, and then maybe can we open this up for some questions or experiences? It's a safe place. This won't be.
I would love to know what you teachers working with your students, what is working for you in your classroom? And also, what strengths do you see in your autistic kids, or even your kids that have other social learning disorders? Because I wrote some strengths down, but I think we all see those kids and we see them in a good light. They don't always learn the same way that we want them to, but I'm just curious.
Strengths. Art and music. I the capacity to hear just a few beats of a song and then recognize the artist and the musician, the band and everything. I've
Mhm.
seen some beautiful things. And we have a mix, I believe, of parents and teachers here, right? Yeah.
So that would go with parents too. What strengths do you see in your kiddo that maybe others don't see?
So for me, I'm out of the classroom now. My child is not autistic, but I have nieces and nephews. And one of the strengths that I've seen languages, picking up a foreign language, very in the beginning as just learning to speak. It took a while, but the child was teaching himself how to speak Mandarin.
Wow.
And they did not realize it, but he was picking up from YouTube, and he's very good. with picking up languages.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. How about lovingness? I mean, it sounds very vague, but even if it's not expressed in the nonverbal communicative way that, because that's a big part to me is just having to understand their version of expression. I don't, but I've just had good experiences with the autism spectrum students that I've had that have just had a purity and a love to them.
So I have a question. I've been out of the regular classroom for some years now, but I recognize the autism spectrum is wide and it seems like it's increasing. Um, I did have one child during the summer. I had a small summer camp, and the
Mhm.
child was only able to attend one day
Okay.
because I could not balance the child with the other
Mhm.
kids. The not that the child can't learn. It was just so I'm trying to figure out how would you handle that in a regular classroom. The child kind of had outbursts. I didn't mind so much the child moving about. All kids are different, but the child was still taking in, but it was moving about, the humming, so it was distracting to the other kids. So
Mhm.
if you have a class of 25, how does that work? Um, it's different when you can pull them out or in smaller
It
groups, like you said.
that is your situation is one of the toughest because a lot of times teachers now in the States have a co-teacher. And so we used to have difficulties. And literally what would happen is an aide would come in, take the student and go color or do something outside the classroom. Now there's a curriculum for them to be learning and strategies for them to be learning. If I'm in a classroom and there's 25 kids and one kid is going off, what I'm going to do is get the rest of the students to the best of my ability, get them working on something, and then go over to that student and see what they need. Do they need a break? Do they need to have it explained or chunked for them? Are they uncomfortable? Are they hungry? Are they, you know what I'm saying? Yours is a very real scenario that I don't know, maybe somebody else would do it differently and better, but
I would take advantage of peer of training them how to do some independent work and oh it's hard but like really amp up your positive behavior, not that they always are in control of being able to but this is I've been in school situations where there's not the right support and you have too many different needs at once and it I guess it's like having proactive methods for self-regulation. So, and they can be done with the regular kids too, because I teach with a mixed multi-age and mixed inclusion classroom. And so having strategies. So not all kids are expected to have to sit at the circle if they need before they teaching them before they get to the point of a meltdown, how to go up and do push-ups against the wall or find their spot to be able to self-regulate. But really, it's not a solution, and that's harder than that. But yeah,
So do
especially
you
if you're all alone.
So do you find with that, the self-regulating, I agree. Um, do you find that you're able to incorporate it with young kids as well? Do
Yeah,
you find a way? Okay.
yeah, definitely. I think we should share, I don't know if even if it's a video that you learn how to do the motions, but there's some about the vestibular system, about it, self-calming techniques before you even start. So a lot of like preparation before activities start, before activities end, before you started, start transition in any way. But I feel like yeah, I feel like if I could share some videos with you, it might be helpful, even if I record another teacher doing them with her permission. It's hard though. It's hard because you know that the child's not coming from a place of disobedience or disrespect, but it comes off so much that way, you know? Yeah.
Well, I think we have to keep in mind too, this is always a balance because those other 25 or 24 students, they need help too, and they need what they need. So I so agree with you, Lang. It's about um, preparation and structure, so much of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Um,
Marie. Marie has a question.
uh, yeah, well, I have a thought. Well, first of all, with the mention of most of our centers, for EEO, we have an isolated room. And that helps. And I concur with you that I see them, that's an opportunity for them to get away from everyone else. And I wasn't looking at it like that, but it seemed to be a real thing. But a thought ran across my mind when you were asking the question to Mrs. Deal. In fact, she brought up the point about how do you deal with that in a classroom with students who may need this time away from the others. But I wonder if they're like puzzles or clay or something that they may have in their desk that they're able to stop doing what they're doing with the rest of the class and maybe play with a puzzle because most of them don't want to be with the other students, and like you mentioned, they could be out of the circle or whatever. So that ran across my mind that if they have something at their desk that they can just pull out and for a few minutes that they can just work on that by themselves because they want to be by themselves.
So Brenda, I know as a parent, um, and I know every child's different, but what were some of the activities that you would do it with your child at home that you found was helpful?
It was also really good for me because it was all about visual structure, calendars, something that we had to prepare for transitions. Um, it's unbelievable how many times we transition within a day. And young kids and even older kids have that a real difficulty leaving something that they're interested in and going to something else. So I did a lot of like we'd play a game and we'd have to, it was like training. It was training about what transition words and what are you going to do to the other thing is I love my son's sense of humor. He is I just found the things that I loved about him and played those up. It is heart-wrenching when your kid never had a date. They never go to prom. Their friendships don't last. They feel isolated. And so one of the other things that I've had to do is encourage him to get counseling and to take care of himself as an older adult. You know, he knows he's different and just really staying, yeah, you're different and that's okay. Yay, different. Making that environment very positive. I hope that answered.
I think I ask because I think sometimes as parents, you're just so overwhelmed with everything. And sometimes it's simple things, but we don't think about them at the time. Like when our kids get sick, we sometimes don't think about like, oh, maybe I should put on the humidifier or whatever because they're sick at the time. So we get so overwhelmed. So I think hearing to somebody else, and even if it's something we know, it just helps to re-jot our memory of what would be good to use.
Something I didn't think to say earlier, but to parents that are on today, I don't know if you have a support group through the schools or if there's any way to do that. But one of the big ways for a parent for that helped me was to find other people, other parents of kids with autism. And that then you can exchange what works. And you can also exchange the horror stories. I mean, because you feel sometimes like you're alone and um, you're a terrible parent or a terrible teacher because you can't control this kid. And that's not, it's a difficult situation. So sharing it with somebody else is good.
Brenda, I had a question. I'm a teacher as well, and I'm a volunteer with EEO. But I have some relatives who have twin boys with autism, and one of the things that I know from their perspective is they're always nervous about going out into public spaces or trying to go for dinners because they're not sure what's going to happen and what stimulus may, trigger one of their children. So from the parent perspective, I'm sure there's probably parents in this group right now who also have those hesitations about public spaces and the unknown of what to expect when you're out. Um, is there any advice that you have for those parents who feel like in that situation they try to avoid those kinds of situations where they can't plan for the stimulus that they might encounter and things like that?
That was a constant problem with our family, was socializing. And I I think some of it is being in low risk situations. Like you don't go out to a really nice dinner. Maybe go out to McDonald's or something and you train, you work with what's appropriate. This might happen. I mean, you literally set it up as you're going to plan out kind of what might happen. These are the doors, these are exits. Um, Ours wasn't so much he was worried about what was going to happen, but he would get upset. And I never knew when he was going to get upset. I think it's good that they know what the trigger is. I wish I had a better answer. Does anybody else have that experience?
I know with my nephew, that was really hard in the beginning. Um, and they figured out what keeps him occupied, his tablet. He loves his tablet. And so they would always have it close nearby in case they needed a calming thing that would calm him. So they might get out to a restaurant without the tablet. It's not like that has to be there. But if they realize he was triggered or what have you, then they would pull it out because for him, that was his calming element.
Yes, thank you. That makes both of those ideas make sense. And starting with the idea of starting with a low kind of risk situation. And that also kind of made me think, advice to them would be have a social plan that you can kind of get out of easily. So, if a social setting is, an open public space that you can easily just kind of, you know, move around to a quieter space, like, and maybe, I guess, prepare in advance. Brenda, would you have talked with your child in advance about what you're going to see? Is that part of the plan as well?
When Alex was 9 or 10, I took him downtown Chicago to see Blue Man Group, which is a theatrical thing. Didn't think anything of it. We got tickets in the front row. Well, Blue Man Group is very interactive, and they threw water. And when we came in, for some reason, somebody said, "Oh, you better get your we had to get a plastic coat." A plastic coat to sit and watch theater. Well, he was terrified. He absolutely did not want to see it. So I talked to the people. They switched our tickets and put us in the back, and it was fine. He loved it. But knowing that that was going, first of all, finding out what the actual show was, and I should have done a better job at that. But I think it's all preparation. And there's going to be failures. And, sometimes being with people that don't mind that it's tough, especially if you're out with friends or family. So having people around that know that this might happen, there might be a trigger or we might have to leave can help you too, or help them not feel so vulnerable.
Okay, if there isn't, Lang, I don't know if you have any closing words. Can't hear you. There you
Sorry,
go.
gotcha. I just wanted to thank you, Brenda, and also thank you everybody who showed up. I think maybe we should do this again. And you said that there should be a support group, but I think that's a really important part. And maybe you could share your email with the group in the chat, because maybe if some people weren't really open. And then I also wanted to let you know we're going to be doing a workshop on February 18th. It's for teachers across Eleuthera, but we're going to have a Zoom link. So there's going to be a speaker who's actually also a parent, but connected to Reach, the organization in Nassau, who's going to be speaking. And then there's going to be a presenter on ESL and a presenter on dyslexia and one on inclusion, who I'm excited about all of them. But um, we have your emails, and if you're okay with it, we'll share that information. And Brenda just shared hers. But thank you guys for making the time. And I hope we can support each other. Life gets messy sometimes, but when you're open and you're willing to learn, and all of you that came tonight, I commend you. And let's all be of support to each other. My email as well, I would like to put in there. Because one of my goals is to start having parent support be more regular. I feel like quite often we do these workshops, and they're that we just need to keep it going. We need to keep the communication going, and we need to say, okay, this strategy worked for me, but I had to do this to it, and share our resources and share our struggles and our triumphs, right?
Is there a way to capture all of the emails that are going on in the chat?
Gabby.
Sorry. Yes, we will be able, yeah, we'll be able to save them.
Thank you,
Great.
everybody. I really appreciate it. Was an honor to be here, and I wish everybody the very best, and thank you for the work you do.
Yeah.